quickly, just so he doesn't go into his return to sport too early. So his return to sport. All of these again are progressive exercises, just so he doesn't again get in the deep end and further injure himself. So I'd start with running over 20 meters in a straight line, quite basic, and then just do that twice to make sure it's fine. Then I'd build this up by running. This is not a sprint, by the way, it's just a jog. So he has to begin to twist and turn again on his ankle. This just so he begins to replicate in-game situations where he's going to have to move, side to side, not just in straight lines. He's going to do this twice as well. The reason I'm doing it twice on everything is just because if you can do it once, he might not be able to do it again. So beginning to do it twice, it's just going to make sure he can do that stage, which I think is very important. So then it's going to be a 20-meter sprint in a straight line. So he's going to have to push off his injured leg with more force, which means it's going to test his ankle a bit more. So just kind of building it up. And then it's going to be in the diagonal cone. So again, just building it up and getting him to really put a lot of pressure on his ankle. But hopefully this will be okay because of the things we've done before. Then I'm going to get him to do a normal stationary vertical jump with a head. With a ball. So he's just going to head it back to me into my hand, and he's literally just going to do that twice so I can make sure he can jump properly and land on his ankle properly, putting quite a lot of force on it without injuring it again. And then I'm going to get him to do it again, but landing just on his injured leg. So he's having to put a lot of force on it. But I think, this is just so I'm making sure he can do the things that he'll have to do in a game so he doesn't injure himself when he goes back to a game. Then he's going to do a run and jump. So he's having to run and jump and head of the ball. This is good because it obviously is combining the two movements that we've been through so far. And he can just starting to get used to the in-game movements which he's going to have to do. Then it's the same, so run and jump, doing a header, landing on one leg, which obviously is the injured one, which is good because he might get knocked off balance when he's going for a header in an actual game, and he might have to land on his injured foot, so this way we're just making sure he is able to do that. So when I start then, moving on to start with the dribbling just in a straight line. So now we're using a football on his actual ankle. This just means that he can just get used to the resistance on it. And this is just a jogging pace again, just in a straight line for 20 metres. And then he's going to dribble in and out of cones twice. This means because he's just going to have to start to move side to side with keeping the resistance on it. Then he's going to have to do it at high speed, so I want him to do it, a bit quicker this time. But I'm not going to use the cones. I'm just going to get him to kind of sprint while kind of pushing the ball from side to side, so that he can get used to running with the ball instead of just the dribbling part. So it's obviously a completely different thing. Then I'm going to do short passing, just 10 on each foot. The reason I'm doing it 10 on each foot instead of just on the injured foot is because he's going to have to stand on his injured foot when he's passing with the other foot, so I've got to get him used to that as well. And then I'm going to gradually increase the range until it's about 35 yards. And it's just so the ankle goes through more impact on the ball. Because more power means more impact, and then he's going to have to get used to this. I'm going to make him use the inside, outside, and his laces. So the ankle's getting work from all areas, so he doesn't just so he's not used to just one area being used, but so he's used to all three areas of the boot to use, because he might be able to do one but not another, and then he could injure himself again. So then I want to do passing and move the range of different distances and techniques just with a partner. This is because then you can start getting used to the in-game thing again, where he's having to move, running backwards, forwards, sideways, and using the impact as well. So he's kind of combining everything we've gone through so far together, just progressing it through. Then I'm going to get him to do some shooting with the inside, outside, and laces. Two shots with each technique. This was with a stationary ball. And I'm going to make him do this with both feet as well, just so he can really get used to a lot of impact on his ankle. So when he does have to do this in game, he doesn't injure himself. The reason I'm doing different techniques again is so we can work different angles on his ankle, so he doesn't injure one part of it. Then I'm going to move on to shooting on the move. So I might do a 1-2 with him, and then he has to shoot obviously on the move instead of just from a dead ball situation. This is good because again it's just combining everything together. So he's having to pass, dribble, and shoot and run all in one, and then he's going to have to put. I'm going to make this do on each foot again. So he's getting used to his injured leg being the standing foot and the striking foot. This is good just because he can get used to it. And then finally, the most dangerous thing, I'm going to get him used to tackling. So I'm just going to get him to a ball in the middle with two people, and he's just going to like kick into the ball. Both people are not too hard to start with, and not so the ball goes flying. Just so he's getting used to impact on his ankle, getting used to that technique of tackling again. And then after he's okay with this, I'll move to a one-on-one situation. I'm making him have a go at being the attacker and the defender, just so he can get used to the tackling and maybe getting tackled so he doesn't injure his ankle. So throughout the program, he needs to have the psychological considerations are his anxiety of not knowing if he'll return to the same standard, like because if his ankle doesn't get to the same strength, he might not be able to do the things he was doing before. So that's something to consider. So I might have to give him some reassurance about that. He might be frustrated with how long the injury is taking, but I'm going to have to keep on telling him not to go back too early because he could aggravate his injury. I'm going to keep him motivated by maybe showing some clips of him when he wasn't injured so he can think he wants to get back to that standard. So if I do this also, he'll stay focused on the recovery and hopefully get back quicker and not go back too early and injure himself. And the final thing I'm going to use is goal setting, because having something to always work towards is very good, because that's like some motivation to work towards it rather than just not thinking I don't really know what's going on. So with the goal setting, I'll use like short-term, medium-term and long-term goals, so that if I set one long-term goal, that sounds like quite a big task and he might think it's unrealistic, but using loads of short-term, medium goals, he can work towards this long-term goal of obviously getting back into his football. It's important that this whole program is carefully structured, so to make sure that he is not pushed too hard too early, because this could do some really bad further damage to his ankle. So all the exercises have to be progressive in a good way, no sudden jumps, and just to make sure he doesn't damage anymore. And also, before we do anything, we need to make sure that he's psychologically ready as well, otherwise he may not put 100% effort in. And by this I mean if he's worried he's going to get injured again while he's doing something, he may not want to obviously go into it with all of his might, which means, if he then goes into a proper game, putting in 100% effort, he could injure himself. So I'm going to make sure that he puts in 100% effort on everything that he does. For the recording, documentation and tracking treatment, I'm just going to make sure I always have my up-to-date information on the client in a folder, so I can always be aware of any problems that could occur. Like for example, with the strapping, he could be allergic to zinc oxide, for example. And then I don't want to make him have an allergic reaction, so that's good to know. And then I'm going to track his treatment by using smart targets, so we can gradually build it up. And we always know where he is, where in his long-term goal journey, his medium-term goal journey, and the short-term goals will be used to work his way up to the long-term goal and medium-term goals. So this is how we're going to track it.